You're driving down the interstate, maybe heading home from work, maybe on a road trip with friends. The world outside is ordinary. Taillights, billboards, the low rumble of tires on asphalt. Then, in a split second, the sky ahead erupts into a blinding white flash. Your first instinct is confusion. Did lightning just strike? But this is no storm. This is the moment every survivalist, every emergency planner, every government agency has quietly dreaded. A nuclear detonation, right in your line of sight, while you're trapped in a metal box at 70 miles per hour. What you do in the next 5 seconds will decide if you live, die, or become a statistic in the most catastrophic event imaginable. Let's be brutally honest, almost nobody's prepared for this. Not the people in the SUVs next to you, not the truckers up ahead, not even most first responders. The advice you've heard, duck and cover, get to a basement, avoid windows, none of it fits the reality of being on a highway, exposed with nowhere to hide and no time to think. The physics of a nuclear blast don't care about your plans. They don't care about your car's safety rating, your GPS, or your playlist. They care about distance, exposure, and milliseconds. And the truth is, the highway is one of the worst places you could be when the unthinkable happens. So what actually happens in those first moments? Here's the science nobody tells you. The initial flash isn't just light, it's a thermal pulse, an invisible wall of heat that can ignite clothing, melt dashboards, and cause third-degree burns through your windshield. If you're close enough to see the fireball, you're close enough to be in danger. The blast wave follows, a shock front moving faster than sound, shattering glass, flipping vehicles, and turning every loose object into a deadly missile. And then, almost instantly, the electromagnetic pulse, EMP, rips through the air, frying the electronics in your car, your phone, and every modern vehicle around you. Gridlock, chaos, and silence descend, all in less than a minute. But here's the first myth to bust. Your car is not a safe shelter. Most people think the metal shell will protect them, but modern vehicles are built for efficiency, not for shielding against heat, radiation, or blast. The glass transmits thermal energy, the plastics inside can ignite, and the thin metal offers almost no protection from gamma rays. If you're thinking, I'll just drive away, think again. The EMP can kill your engine instantly, especially if you're in a newer car. Even if your car survives, the roads ahead may be blocked by wrecks, fires, or panicked drivers who lost control in the chaos. So what do? Here's the actionable truth. If you see the flash, you have seconds to act. Don't stare. Turn away immediately. Cover your eyes and as much exposed skin as possible. Get low, ideally below the window line, behind the engine block if you can. Why? Because the engine is the densest part of your car and offers the best, though still limited, shielding from both heat and radiation. If you have a jacket, blanket, or anything thick, throw it over your head and hands. These aren't perfect solutions, but in a nuclear event, every layer, every second, every inch counts. Now, let's talk about the blast wave. You might have 3 to 10 seconds after the flash before the shockwave hits, depending on your distance. If you're close, you'll feel a pressure like a giant's hand slamming into your car. Windows will shatter inward, so keep your head down and cover your face. If your car is thrown or flipped, brace yourself. Hands behind your head, feet up if possible, like you're preparing for a crash landing. It's not about comfort, it's about minimizing injury from flying glass and debris. But what if you survive the initial blast? Here's where most people's curiosity fades, but your survival depends on what happens next. Fires will ignite everywhere, on the road, in vehicles, in the grass and trees along the highway. The air will fill with smoke, toxic fumes from burning plastics, and possibly radioactive dust. The EMP will have killed most modern cars, so the highway becomes a parking lot of wreckage and confusion. Emergency services? Don't count on them. Radios, cell towers, and dispatch systems will be down. You are, for the next hour at least, on your own. Let's pause and ask, what would you do right now if you saw that flash? Would you freeze, panic, or act? Most people freeze, but the ones who survive are the ones who move, who know in advance what the physics demand. That's why you're here, because the next part is even critical: fallout. Fallout is the silent killer that most people underestimate, and on a highway, it's a threat that multiplies with every passing minute. Here's the science. When a nuclear device detonates, it vaporizes everything at ground zero: soil, asphalt, metal, and even concrete. This material is sucked upward into the mushroom cloud, where it becomes intensely radioactive. As the cloud cools, those particles begin to fall back to Earth, carried by the wind. Fallout can start descending within 10 to 20 minutes of the blast, and the heaviest, most dangerous particles land first, often right where survivors are trapped. Now, imagine you're still in your car surrounded by hundreds of other vehicles, many of them burning. The air is thick with smoke and dust. Fallout looks like ash or sand, but it's far deadlier. The radiation it emits, mostly gamma rays, can penetrate metal, glass, and flesh. Here's a hidden truth. The thin metal of your car offers almost no protection. Even if you close the windows and doors, radioactive dust will settle on every surface, and the radiation will pass right through. The only real protection is mass, concrete, earth, or lead. On a highway, you have none of these. So what can you do? First, you need to minimize your exposure. If your car still runs, drive perpendicular to the wind direction. Get out of the fallout path as fast as possible. But if your EMP has killed your engine, you need to act fast. Cover your mouth and nose with any cloth you can find to avoid inhaling radioactive dust. If you have water, use it to wet the cloth. It will help trap particles. Get out of the car and look for the lowest, most shielded spot nearby. A drainage ditch, a culvert, even a deep depression in the ground is better than sitting exposed. The goal is to put as much earth and concrete between you and the fallout as possible, even if it means crawling into a muddy ditch. Here's a curiosity hook. Did you know that just 3 inches of packed earth can cut gamma radiation exposure in half? Every inch matters. If you can, pile dirt, luggage, or even car floor mats over yourself. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Stay low, stay covered, and wait. The radiation from fallout drops rapidly over time, by about 90% after the first 7 hours. If you can survive the first hour, your odds improve dramatically. But what about the fires? This is where the highway scenario gets uniquely dangerous. The thermal pulse from the blast can ignite dozens, even hundreds of small fires, burning cars, grass, trees, and spilled fuel. These fires can merge into firestorms, sucking in oxygen and creating winds that whip flames across the landscape. The smoke is not just a breathing hazard, it can carry radioactive particles deep into your lungs. If you're downwind of a major fire, move crosswind or upwind if you can. If you're trapped, use your shirt or a wet cloth as a filter. Stay as low as possible. Smoke rises, and the air near the ground will be cleaner. Let's bust another myth: waiting for help. In a nuclear highway scenario, emergency services will be overwhelmed, and most communication systems will be down. You can't rely on rescue for at least the first 24 hours. Your best chance is self-rescue, moving away from the blast and fallout, finding shelter, and minimizing exposure. If you have a basic emergency kit in your car, water, a flashlight, a dust mask, and a first aid kit, you're already ahead of 90% of people. If not, now you know what to pack. Here's a practical tip. If you have a map or GPS device that still works, look for underpasses, tunnels, or even abandoned construction sites nearby. These can offer better shielding than your car. If you're with others, work together. Share resources, take turns watching for danger, and keep morale up. Panic is contagious, but so is calm. The survivors are the ones who keep their heads and act with purpose. Now, let's talk about the next phase, the psychological and social fallout, because surviving the blast and the radiation is only the beginning. The real test comes in the hours and days that follow, when fear, confusion, and desperation set in. What happens when hundreds of people are stranded together, cut off from the outside world with limited resources and no clear authority? That's where the science of human behavior becomes just as important as the physics of survival. The hours after a nuclear detonation on the highway are a crucible, not just of physical survival, but of mental resilience and group dynamics. Imagine the scene. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people stranded in a corridor of wrecked vehicles, smoke, and radioactive dust. The initial shock gives way to confusion. Some people panic, running blindly or screaming for help. Others freeze, unable to process what's happened. A few, the rare few, start to organize, sharing water, tending to the injured, and looking for shelter. This is where your mindset matters as much as your knowledge. Here's a hidden truth from disaster psychology. In mass emergencies, most people look to others for cues on how to act. If you stay calm and take decisive action, you can influence those around you. Start by checking yourself and those nearby for injuries. Stop bleeding, cover burns, and reassure others. If you have a whistle or can shout, call out for anyone with medical training. Form small groups. There's safety in numbers, and pooling resources increases everyone's odds. But beware, as hours pass and the reality of isolation sets in, desperation can breed conflict. Water, food, and shelter become precious. Arguments can flare over the smallest things. The best way to prevent chaos is to establish simple rules. Share what you have, rotate watch duties, and keep moving toward better shelter if possible. If someone becomes aggressive or irrational, distance yourself if you can. Your priority is survival, not heroics. Now, let's address a curiosity you might have. What about the long-term effects of radiation? Acute radiation sickness can set in within hours if you've received a high dose. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, weakness, and confusion. But here's the science. The most dangerous period is the first 24 hours. If you've managed to shield yourself and limit exposure, your risk drops dramatically as the fallout decays. After 48 hours, radiation levels may be low enough to move more freely, especially if you're moving away from the blast site. But the environment remains hazardous. Fires may still be burning, and the air can be thick with toxic smoke and dust. If you have access to water, use it to wash exposed skin and rinse your mouth. Change clothes if possible, and bag contaminated items away from your shelter. If you're forced to travel, avoid touching surfaces covered in dust, and don't eat or drink anything that's been exposed unless you have no other choice. Here's a practical, actionable checklist for the first 24 hours. Stay sheltered. Remain in the best protected spot you can find, especially during the first 6 to 12 hours. Limit movement. Only move if fire, smoke, or other immediate dangers force you out. Monitor symptoms. Watch for signs of radiation sickness in yourself and others. Conserve resources. Ration water and food. You don't know how long you'll be stranded. Plan for escape. As soon as it's safe, move upwind and away from the blast and fallout zone. Let's not sugarcoat it. The psychological toll is immense. Survivors of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Chernobyl reported not just physical injuries, but deep trauma, fear, guilt, and a sense of unreality. On a highway, cut off from news, family, and help, these feelings can be overwhelming. The best antidote is action. Focus on small, achievable goals. Find shelter, help someone, ration supplies, plan your next move. Every step you take is a victory over chaos. But here's the hope. History shows that even in the worst disasters, people can adapt, improvise, and survive. Communities form in the unlikeliest places. Strangers become allies. The key is to keep moving, mentally and physically, towards safety, even when the odds seem impossible. As the hours turn into days, the outside world will begin to respond. Emergency teams may arrive, but they'll be slow, cautious, and focused on the least contaminated areas first. Your best chance is to be ready to move when the opportunity comes. Know your direction, have your group organized, and be prepared to signal for help. Let's bring it all together. What are the big picture lessons from a nuclear detonation on the highway? What can you do right now before disaster strikes to stack the odds in your favor? That's where we'll end, on the most important survival truths you can act on today. If you've made it this far, you already know more than 99% of people about what really happens when a nuclear detonation hits a highway. But knowledge alone isn't enough. The final, most crucial step is preparation, because in a real event, you won't have time to Google survival tips or watch another video. You'll have seconds to act, and what you've done beforehand will make all the difference. Let's start with your car. Most people treat their vehicle as a convenience, not a lifeline. But in a nuclear scenario, a few simple preparations can double or triple your odds of survival. First, build a basic emergency kit and keep it in your trunk or under a seat. At minimum, you want bottled water, high-calorie snacks, a dust mask or N95 respirator, a flashlight with extra batteries, a first aid kit, a whistle, a multi-tool, a heavy blanket, and a map of your region. If you can, add a battery-powered radio, extra clothes, and a small shovel. These aren't just for nuclear events, they're useful in any disaster, from blizzards to earthquakes. Next, know your routes.
Highways are efficient, but they're also choke points. Study the roads you travel most. Where are the underpasses, culverts, or embankments you could use for shelter? Are there service roads or exits that could get you off the main route quickly? In a crisis, the best escape is often perpendicular to the main flow of traffic and away from the wind direction. Practice visualizing what you'd do if you saw that flash. Where would you turn? How would you shield yourself? Who would you call if you had just seconds? Here's a curiosity builder. Did you know that older vehicles with minimal electronics are less vulnerable to EMP? If you drive a classic car or keep a backup vehicle, you might have a better chance of escaping gridlock. But don't count on it. Modern highways are filled with electronic-dependent cars, and even a few dead vehicles can block the road for miles. That's why your best bet is to be ready to move on foot if you have to. Good shoes, a hat, and a sturdy backpack can be lifesavers. Let's talk about mindset. The most powerful survival tool you have is your brain. Panic is the enemy. Preparation is your ally. Run through mental drills. If you see the flash, turn away, get low, cover up, and count to 10 before moving. If you're caught in fallout, get to the lowest, most shielded spot you can find. Cover your mouth and wait for the radiation to drop. If you're with others, take charge. Calm voices and clear instructions save lives. But here's the hope. Even in the worst-case scenario, survival is possible. The physics are brutal, but they're also predictable. Every second you act quickly, every inch of shielding you find, every smart decision you make increases your odds. The stories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors, of people who lived through Chernobyl and Fukushima, prove that knowledge and action can overcome even the most overwhelming odds.
So, what can you do right now? Here's your actionable checklist. Build your car kit. Water, food, mask, first aid, blanket, flashlight, map. Know your routes. Identify shelter spots and escape paths on your daily drives. Practice your plan. Mentally rehearse what you do in the first 10 seconds after a flash. Stay informed. Learn about nuclear risks in your region and sign up for emergency alerts. And share this knowledge. Talk to your family, friends, and coworkers. The more people who know, the safer everyone becomes. And finally, remember, the world is unpredictable, but you don't have to be helpless. The physics of a nuclear detonation are terrifying, but they're not magic. They follow rules, and those rules can be survived, if you're ready. Don't let fear paralyze you. Let it motivate you to prepare, to act, and to help others do the same. If you take away one thing from this, let it be this. Survival isn't about luck. It's about knowledge, readiness, and the will to act when every second counts. The highway may be a place of vulnerability, but with the right mindset and preparation, it can also be a place of resilience. The next time you get behind the wheel, ask yourself, if the unthinkable happened, would you be ready? Now you know how to be.